2 years. It had been 2 full years since I signed those divorce papers and walked away from the biggest betrayal of my life. I thought I was done with her. I thought I'd moved on. Then one evening, there's a knock on my door. I open it, and there she is, my ex-wife, standing on my doorstep, 4 months pregnant, and the first words out of her mouth, "We need to talk about the timing." Man, if you think you've heard crazy stories before, buckle up, because what happened next? I could not make this up if I tried. My ex-wife and I were married for 8 years. We met in our mid-20s, dated for 2 years, got married, and for a while, things were actually pretty good. I worked as a field auditor for a national accounting firm, which meant I traveled a lot. I'm talking 2, sometimes 3 weeks out of the month on the road, different client sites, different cities, conducting audits and compliance reviews, the whole 9 yards. My wife worked as a marketing coordinator for a software company, regular office hours, home every night, weekends off. Pretty stable job. But she absolutely hated that I traveled so much. The complaints were constant. I wasn't around enough. She felt like she was living alone. When was I going to get a normal job? I heard it all the time. And look, I get it. I wasn't around as much as I should have been, but the money was good. We had a nice house, nice cars, went to exotic places. The travel was the trade-off. About 3 years into our marriage, I decided to make a change. I talked to my company and cut my travel down to maybe 1 week a month, sometimes less. I thought this would fix everything. Boy, was I wrong. She started acting like my being home was throwing off her whole world. At first, I figured maybe she just needed time to adjust, so I gave it time. But weeks went by, and it only got worse. She'd come home from work and disappear into the bedroom. We stopped having dinner together, stopped watching TV together, stopped doing anything together, really. And the intimacy, it got rare. We went from being intimate regularly to maybe once every couple of months. Then I noticed something else. That damn phone of hers was glued to her. She took it everywhere, and she got super protective of it. One time her phone buzzed on the counter while she was upstairs, and she heard it. She came flying down those stairs like the house was on fire. She snatched that phone up so fast, I thought she was going to break it. That's when alarm bells started going off in my head. So I literally became a detective, so to speak. I started paying attention. She started going out more, meeting friends for drinks, running errands, picking up things from the store. And she'd be gone for hours, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours just for errands. Something wasn't adding up, and I wasn't going to continue to be a fool. One evening, she told me she was meeting her friend Rachel for dinner. Cool, no problem. But the next day, by pure chance, I ran into Rachel. I mentioned something like, "Hope you guys had fun at dinner last night." And she looked at me confused. She said she hadn't seen my wife in weeks. They'd been trying to schedule something but kept missing each other. I thought to myself, yep, my wife is messing around. When my wife got home that night, I didn't say anything. I just filed it away, but that's when I made the decision. I didn't have time to take off work or stress over what she was doing while I was at work, so I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed proof. I needed to know for sure before I blew up my entire marriage over a hunch. I found a woman. To my surprise, she caught her husband cheating and divorced him. That's how she literally got started. We talked on the phone. I explained the situation, and she said she needed about a week. Plus, she was just getting her business off the ground. She only charged me $3,000. I paid it, gave her photos of my wife, her work address, her car info, everything. And then I waited. That week felt like the longest week of my life. 5 days later, she calls me and tells me she's got some things she wants me to see. We schedule a time to meet the next day at a park. When we meet, she pulls out this folder. I'm telling you, I wasn't ready for what I was about to see. Photos, dozens of them. My wife, meeting up with some guy, hugging him in parking lots, putting her hands all over him, kissing him, going into his house. The investigator had followed her for 5 days straight, and every single day she met up with this guy. The affair partner was 34 years old, worked in real estate, divorced, no kids, lived about 15 minutes from our house. The investigator even had timestamps on everything. She'd leave work at 5, drive straight to his place, stay for 2 or 3 hours, then come home and act like she'd been running errands. I was sick after that. 8 years of marriage. And this is what it came to. I didn't waste any time. The next morning, I called a lawyer and started the divorce process. But I wanted to confront her first. I wanted her to know that I knew. So that evening, when she got home from work, I was sitting in the living room with the folder on my lap. She walked in, saw me sitting there with this folder, and immediately her face changed. She asked what was going on. I didn't say anything. I got up from the couch and gave her the folder. She opened it and looked up at me. It was like watching someone realize their whole world was about to collapse. She tried to deny it at first, and then just went silent. I was standing in front of her with my arms crossed, just looking at her and shaking my head at the same time. Then she tried to speak again. I just simply told her it was best that she leaves. I have already filed for divorce. She moved out that week, didn't know who she was going to stay with, and frankly, I didn't give a shit. The divorce took about 6 months to finalize. In our state, we had to be separated for 6 months before the divorce could be granted. During that time, we barely spoke, maybe 3 or 4 conversations total, and everything else went through our lawyers. We didn't have kids, thank God, and we split our assets pretty evenly. The house was in my name only, so I kept it. She took her car, half the savings, and that was that. The divorce was finalized in April 2 years ago. I signed the papers, she signed the papers, and we went our separate ways. I genuinely thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd never have to deal with her again. Man, was I wrong. After the divorce, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I started going to the gym more, picked up some hobbies I'd let slide during the marriage, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. I even started dating again after about a year. Nothing serious at first, just getting back out there, remembering what it was like to actually enjoy someone's company. I heard through mutual friends that my ex-wife was still with her boyfriend. Apparently, they'd made it official after our divorce was finalized. They were living together, doing the whole relationship thing. Good for them, I guess. I didn't care. I was done with that chapter of my life. I closed that book and thrown it in the trash. But then, about 10 months ago, I heard they broke up. One of my ex-wife's friends, who I was still cool with, mentioned it in passing. Said her boyfriend had cheated on my ex-wife and she'd kicked him out. I'm not going to lie. There was a tiny part of me that felt a bit of satisfaction hearing that. Apparently, karma is real, but mostly I just didn't care. It wasn't my problem anymore. She made her bed, now she had to lie in it. I moved on, started seeing someone new. We'd been dating for about 4 months at that point, and things were going really well. She knew about my ex, knew about the cheating and the divorce, and she was super understanding about all of it. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was genuinely in a good place. And then, one random evening, there's a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I open it up, and there she is, my ex-wife, standing on my doorstep, and she's visibly pregnant. Not hugely pregnant, but definitely showing. 4, maybe 5 months along, I'm guessing. We just stared at each other for a solid 5 seconds. I hadn't seen her in person since the divorce was finalized 2 years ago, and now here she was, pregnant, on my doorstep. My brain was trying to process what was happening. Finally, I asked her what she was doing here, and she said, "Can I come in? We need to talk." I didn't want her in my house. I didn't want to talk to her, but something about the look on her face told me this wasn't just a casual visit. So I stepped aside and let her in. We sat down in my living room, and there was this heavy, awkward silence. She was fidgeting with her hands, not making eye contact. I finally broke the silence and asked her again what she was doing here, and that's when she said it. "I need to talk to you about the timing of this pregnancy." I asked her what she meant, and she explained that she was about 16 weeks pregnant, 4 months, which would put the conception date around late December, early January. And here's the thing, our divorce was finalized in April, 2 years ago, but we were separated for 6 months before that, which means we separated in October, 2.5 years ago. We hadn't been intimate for about 2 months before that separation. So, if she's 4 months pregnant now, in October, that means she conceived in late June, early July, almost a year and a half after we'd last been intimate, almost 2 full years after our separation. The math didn't add up at all. This baby could not possibly be mine. I sat there for a minute, just doing the math in my head. Then I looked at her and said, "You and I haven't been intimate in almost 3 years. We've been divorced for 2 years. We've had zero contact. So why are you here?" She started getting defensive, told me I needed to listen to the full story. So I crossed my arms and told her to talk. And that's when the truth started coming out. She admitted that yes, after the divorce, she'd stayed with her boyfriend. They'd been together for about a year and a half. But then, about 10 months ago, she found out he was cheating on her with multiple women. She kicked him out, ended the relationship, and thought she was done with him. But here's where it gets messy. About a month after they broke up, she reached out to him. She was lonely, she was hurting, and she made a mistake. They hooked up just one time, one night, and that was it. She left the next morning and blocked his number, and apparently that one night was enough. A few weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. She told him about the pregnancy, and his response, he wanted absolutely nothing to do with it, told her to handle it on her own, accused her of trying to trap him, blocked her on everything, threatened to get a lawyer if she pursued child support, just completely cut her off. So now she's 4 months pregnant, single, struggling financially, and panicking. And that's why she showed up at my door. But here's the kicker. She wasn't claiming the baby was mine. She knew it wasn't. She knew the timeline didn't work. What she was asking for was help, financial help, emotional support. She was asking if I would consider being involved as a friend, as someone who could help her through this. I sat there, absolutely stunned. I asked her if she was serious, if she actually thought I would agree to help raise another man's baby, a man who she cheated on me with, a man whose baby she was now carrying. She started crying, told me she had nobody else. Her family had distanced themselves from her after the divorce. She didn't have close friends anymore. The affair partner wanted nothing to do with her, and she was terrified of doing this alone. I'm not going to lie. There was a tiny part of me that felt bad for her, despite everything she'd done, despite the cheating and the lying. Seeing her sitting there, pregnant and desperate, it tugged at something human in me. But I knew I couldn't do this. I couldn't let her pull me back into her mess. So I told her the truth. I said I understood. She was scared, and I understood she was in a difficult situation. But this wasn't my responsibility. This baby wasn't mine. This situation wasn't mine. She made choices that led her here, and I couldn't be the one to fix it. She asked me if I really felt nothing for her, if 8 years of marriage meant so little that I wouldn't even consider helping her. And I told her those 8 years ended the moment she decided to cheat. I didn't owe her anything. She sat there for another minute, tears streaming down her face. Then she stood up and said something that chilled me. She said, "What if I claimed you were the father anyway? What if I filed for paternity?" I looked at her, trying to figure out if she was serious or just desperate. I told her that if she did that, I would demand a DNA test immediately. And when that test came back negative, which it absolutely would, I would make sure everyone knew what she tried to do. I would pursue legal action for fraud. I would make this as difficult for her as possible. She stared at me for a long moment, then said she wouldn't do that. She just needed me to understand how desperate she was, how scared she was. I told her I understood, but my answer was still no, and I asked her to leave. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back and said, "I'm sorry for everything." And then she was gone. I stood there in my doorway for a solid 3 minutes after she left, just processing what had happened. My ex-wife had shown up, pregnant with her affair partner's baby, asking me to help raise it. It was like something out of a bad movie. I told my girlfriend about it that same night. I didn't hide anything. I explained the whole situation, and she was incredibly supportive. She understood why my ex reached out, even if she didn't agree with it, and she respected that I'd set a clear boundary. For about a week, I didn't hear anything. No calls, no texts, no lawyer showing up at my door. I thought maybe that was the end of it, but then I got a message from my ex-wife. She apologized again, said she was embarrassed about how she'd approached me, said she shouldn't have shown up at my house like that, and she definitely shouldn't have threatened to file a false paternity claim. She was just scared and desperate and not thinking clearly. She said she'd reached out to her family, and they were willing to help her through the pregnancy. She was going to be okay, and she wished me well. I didn't respond. I just deleted the message because at the end of the day, this wasn't my problem to solve. But then, about 2 months later, I heard through that same mutual friend that my ex-wife had reached back out to the affair partner. She had gotten a lawyer and pursued a paternity test, and surprise, surprise, it came back positive. He was the father. Now he's on the hook for child support, and apparently he's furious about it. Tried to fight it, tried to claim the test was wrong, but the court didn't care. DNA doesn't lie. My ex-wife ended up having the baby, a little girl, about a month ago. I only know because that mutual friend mentioned it, and honestly, I'm happy she got the support sorted out. Not because I care about my ex, but because that baby deserves to have a financial support from her actual father. Well, folks, that's my ridiculous story. 2 years after my divorce, my ex-wife showed up at my door, 4 months pregnant, with her affair partner's baby and asked me to help raise it. It was one of the most surreal, uncomfortable conversations of my life, but I'm glad I set that boundary. I'm glad I didn't let guilt or sympathy drag me into a situation that wasn't mine to handle. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that you can't fix other people's problems, especially when those problems stem from their own choices, and you have to protect yourself emotionally and legally. Some people will ask for help in ways that aren't healthy or fair, and it's okay to say no. As for me, I'm doing great. My girlfriend and I are still together, and we're actually talking about moving in together next year, and right now, life is good. And my ex-wife, well, she's got her own life to live now. I wish her and her daughter well, but that chapter is closed for me. Just remember, it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. You don't owe anyone your life just because of a shared past.